And that was the context po in which we were commenting yung hearing po ni Chairman Bato na 3 hearings going on 4, wala pang nangyayari. So with that said, I'm not ready to say po siguro. I don't know if it is a leadership issue, but there seems to be a prioritization issue siguro po sa Senado. I'm not aware of the rules po doon, pero dito po kasi sa House, kapag meron po kaming mga panukalang batas or inquiry na gustong may lapit, may talakay sa committee, dumadaan po yun sa Rules Committee. And they set the tone kung ano po dapat ang priority na kailangan ng taong bayan at ano yung makakapaghintay.
Okay, let's begin. I call on Tina Panganiban Perez from GMA7 for today's first question.
Good morning po, sirs. On the RTL amendments, kasi hanggang ngayon po, tutol pa rin yung senators doon sa bill because they are wary of the NFA regaining its powers dahil sa previous allegations of corruption. Ano pong masasabi niyo?
Personally, I hope that the Senate will be able to act on the amendments of the rice tarification law, which we approved yesterday on second reading. Napakahalaga po kasi nito dahil unang-una, kinikailangan po natin lagyan ng safety nets ang ating industriya pagdating sa presyo ng bigas. Nakita po natin itong mga nakalipas na mga buwan at taon na patuloy na tumataas ang presyo ng bigas. Ngayon, kung walang government intervention tayong gagawin, that will serve as some sort of a competition to the traders and the importers of rice. There won't be a regulatory function or a balancing activity to be done by government. So I totally understand where the senators are coming from, given the recent reputation of certain NFA officials. But let's not forget, this is not an issue of corruption, but rather an issue of food security and price of rice. And we should bring our attention to the main agenda, which is the price of rice, which is food security. So yun ang dapat po nating tutukan. Pagdating naman po sa corruption at mga alleged anomalies na nangyari sa NFA, I'm sure the proper agencies of government can look into this, can persecute them, to put them behind bars. But wag nating kakalimutan, ang pinakamahalaga para sa lahat ay siguraduhin po natin walang Pilipino nagugutom at naibibigay po natin sa kanila ang pinakamagandang presyo ng bilihin para sa bawat pamilya.
Palagi po nating naririnig ang mga kaibigan natin sa Senado na paulit-ulit sinasabi po nila na ang mga problema ng ating bansang dapat bigyan ng solusyon ay ang patuloy na pagtaas ng presyo ng bilihin, lalo na ng bigas. I think the passage of the RTL, especially on the part of the Senate, is an important step for them to prove na sila din ay kaisa sa paggawa ng solusyon. Hindi naman pwedeng ang mga congressman at mga senador ay hanggang lang ho kami sa pag-point out kung ano ang problema at hindi po kasing dedikado sa paghanap ng solusyon. At we like to challenge the Senate to really put forth, help us put forth a good solution, which right now the House is working on yung amendments to the rice tarification law. Clearly, this would ensure that there's a built-in mechanism for competition, lalo na kung mataas ang presyo, andyan yung NFA para magkaroon ng access ang ating mga kababayan sa mas murang bigas. Alam ko na naintindihan ko kung saan nanggagaling ang ilang senador na may agam-agam tungkol sa mga pangyayari ng korupsyon sa nakaraan sa NFA. Ngunit hindi lang naman ang mekanismo para masugpo ang korupsyon ay tanggalin ang isang ahensya o isang function ng isang ahensya. At marami naman, at I'm sure Congress will not hesitate also to exercise its oversight functions over the performance ng NFA in this regard. Kaya nga ho, sana'y suportahan din. I hope that the Senate will join us in ensuring that, especially we have 3 more session days to go before we go on break for Sini Day. I hope that our senators, we appeal to their sense of empathy, no, sa ating mga kababayan in ensuring, ultimately, katulad yung sinabi ni DSJJ, this is really about making sure na may pagkain sa bawat hapagkainan ng bawat pamilyang Pilipino.
If I can also add, Lanao del Norte is the second largest rice producing province in northern Mindanao, Region 10. So when we passed the Rice Tariffication Act last Congress, or during that Congress, most of the representatives that have rice lands, our producers of rice, were wary about it. Because we were fearful that our farmers will be negatively impacted. And that really did happen. In the House version, we placed there mechanisms so that we can more or less help buffer the effects, negative effects of the flood of rice into our country. And when the Senate version or the BICAM came out, nawala yan. So we're still in the level of, the House doing its job. And I have to say, under the leadership of our Speaker and our Speaker Martin Romualdez and our Majority Leader, it's really nice to see how the legislation is moving forward, especially the amendments that are being made on the floor. My number one concern is that the rice tariffication amendment will simply be an extension of the previous law. And what I saw, or what I experienced, as far as my province is concerned, the real beneficiary of the Rice Tariffication Act were actually the suppliers of the mechanized equipment, not so much the farmers. What I believe our leadership here in the House is trying to do is to balance things out. Make sure that the farmers are not negatively affected. At the same time, also ensure that the price of rice is affordable for our countrymen. Outside of that, it's simply just an extension of the previous law, and it will have a minimal significant impact for the average Filipino. So I think the amendments that are being introduced to the plenary is exactly what our president wants: make price affordable and make rice affordable and make the price of rice controllable. And if we need the NFA for that, I think the Senate should come up with a better alternative.
Tina, do you have any follow-up question? Thank you. Elson Quismorio from Manila Bulletin, you're recognized.
Hello, Kongs. Good morning. Anybody can answer po, but I just want to expound on something that Kong Roj mentioned yesterday. You said po, well, you reminded the senators yesterday na kami tapos na dito sa House sa mga LEDAC bills, kayo hindi pa. Just to expound on that po, do you think it's a leadership issue sa Senate? Because this is not the first time na napuna po sila dun sa kabagalan po, pardon the term, kabagalan po nila dun sa pagpapasa po ng LEDAC bills, priority measures. Anybody can answer po, but yes po.
Opo. The context po of that statement was, of course, yung we were highlighting the importance of the time of the senators. We have to remember, yung comparison po na yun is in stark contrast kasi po dito, marami po kami nakikipagtulungan sa committee level. Doon naman nakikita po natin sa Senado, time is very precious for the senators. You only have 24 of them. Hindi po sila makakasabay-sabay sa iba-ibang committee. And that was the context po in which we were commenting yung hearing po ni Chairman Bato na 3 hearings going on 4, wala pang nangyayari. So with that said, I'm not ready to say po siguro. I don't know if it is a leadership issue, but there seems to be a prioritization issue siguro po sa Senado. I'm not aware of the rules po doon, pero dito po kasi sa House, kapag meron po kaming mga panukalang batas or inquiry na gustong may lapit, may talakay sa committee, dumadaan po yun sa Rules Committee. And they set the tone kung ano po dapat ang priority na kailangan ng taong bayan at ano yung makakapaghintay. I don't know if it is the same in the Senate, but it appears to be the chairmen have free will po kung anong gusto nilang italakay. Motu proprio nga po yung PDEA leaks committee hearing. But on the other side, narinig ko rin po na I think it was a comment by Senator Escudero that motu proprio is usually reserved for recess. Not necessarily, hindi po siya yung usual mode na ginagawa during their session. So I really don't know kung what order of events their rules allow. So I don't know if it is a leadership issue, but it seems to be a prioritization issue. Whether this is on their counterpart ng Rules Committee or sa prioritization po ng mga chairman po nila. Pero it seems to be hindi po natatapos yung ibang mga LEDAC priorities. That's why we urge, yun nga po, we always urged kami po, our counterpart bills on the ground, not on the ground, but here in the House, na itatapos, pero yung sa Senate, wala pa po. And beyond LEDAC priorities, we now have, I don't know kung LEDAC technically yung RTL, but this was made urgent by the President. We also have yung verbally made, yung sa amin naman po, yung motorcycle for hire bill, hindi yung LEDAC priority, but still, we're almost done with that. We're waiting rin for the Senate. I don't know kung may galaw doon. So I think that's the issue po doon, prioritization. Now, if it reflects on the leadership, I'm not ready to comment, but I think we all have our opinions on that po.
Mag-add lang ako dun sa sinabi ni Rog, no? Siguro a simple comparison lang. Let's take the RTL as an example. Before our press cons, we were not even discussing the RTL bago nag-start po yung discussions at saka mga referrals, saka mga marathon hearings namin dito sa Congress. But several statements have already been given by the Senate. So ang dami na nilang statements na binitawan na kailangan ng mamamayan nito, ganito, mga murang presyo ng bigas, kailangan pababain ng presyo ng bigas. Pero if you can see, simple comparison, kami, yung statements namin comes after the marathon hearings. Ibig sabihin, gumagalaw na siya bago pa kami nag-release ng statement. So, it's just simple, siguro different ways in handling the urgency of the situation. Pero at least here, when we give out statements, you'll see that the House is working on it. Thank you.
Let me also just slightly add. I guess we can also say that we find evidence in how the bicameral nature of Congress works. No, whatever the House does, and then the Senate also does it themselves. But I think one thing that we should also look into is at least how should the two bodies work together. No, for example. As what was mentioned, there are very many LEDAC priorities that have gone through marathon hearings, which means that there are minutes that tie up to whatever was discussed. There were issues that were echoed by the Senate that were already discussed also in the House of Representatives in Congress. So, which means na maybe for the sake of efficiency, maybe the Senate can also consider at least also looking into what really boiled down in the House. No, I'm very sure that if ever whatever the request the senators may have regarding a particular bill, be it a priority bill or not, the House is willing to also provide, so that at least that both bodies can also have can be on the same page, and therefore fulfilling the initial purpose, which is to pass a bill that is for the benefit of the Filipino people. So I guess this is more of a not really a statement, more of an invitation maybe. Na, the House, I'm very sure, under the leadership of Speaker Martin Romualdez, is also very open to coordinating with the Senate with the priority, especially with the priority legislations that are being tackled in Congress. We have very many resource speakers. We have very many minds working also on specific bills. And therefore, we would also have many different kinds of opinions or points of view or paradigms that we can consider, and that the Senate can also consider take into consideration for their referral and perusal as well. So, yeah.
I'd like to just, maybe as the most senior among the youngest, in many ways naman, as a third termer, working with senators for almost 9 years. I don't think it's a leadership issue. On my personal observation, it's more political. What I saw when I drafted and pushed and shepherded the Marawi compensation bill in the previous Congress, our target was to get it out on third reading before December of that year. Why that year? Because the following year was an election year. And we knew that the senators would move because if they go to Marawi City and wala pang approval ng Marawi Compensation Bill, the ball is in their courts, maraming magagalit sa kanila. So they were somewhat pressured to pass the Marawi Compensation Bill, and it became actually ratified into law. So there is that political aspect where the Senate has to also prepare their timeline. No? But at the same time, also, wouldn't want to the nation to feel as if the Senate is dragging their feet. If it is a matter of national urgency, you can believe that the Senate will get it done. Just like the House of Representatives will work very hard to get things done for the benefit of the Filipino people and to ensure the success of the Bongbong Marcos administration.
Yeah. On a final note, and this is not according to age, no. Other than the LEDAC priority measures, I think one good question we should also ask is what happened to the bills certified as urgent by the BATAS, such as the Procurement Act and the Rice Tarification Law. These are, again, pending in the Senate. We all want na maging matagumpay ang ating mahal na Pangulo. Ninanais natin na maging matagumpay ang kanyang administrasyon. At sa ilalim ng kanyang administrasyon, may kinakailangan ng mga panukalang batas na maipasa upang masiguro na yung mga ninanais ng kanyang administrasyon ay makamit. At nakasalalay po dito ang kooperasyon ng Kongreso at ng Senado. Kaya siguro ang mahalaga po para sa atin ay to be united in this position because we're all fighting for the same common cause, and that's the Filipino people. So I hope we can put the leadership issue aside. I hope we can put politics aside and move forward with regards to the best interests of the Filipino.